Call the meeting to order. Pledge of allegiance. No, is there an invocation? Sorry. Okay, pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any changes to the agenda?
The agenda that was published on Friday did not include one of our presentations, so we're adding a presentation to the beginning, the rehabilitation of the tennis courts at City Park. Other than that, it's the same.
Okay. Do I need a motion to approve the amended agenda?
I approve the agenda as amended.
I have a motion from Keaton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Chuck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Public comments. This is a time where citizens are encouraged to speak publicly. We request that you come to the podium, state your name and address, speak respectfully, and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Well, those are really stringent, confining rules. In case you've forgotten, my name is Arlene Clayton. My address at the present time is in Belleville, Kansas. I have absolutely no business association whatsoever. Never wanted them, never will have them. First of all, I want to address the DAR chapter here, the Ethan Allen chapter and the Dames of the American Revolution. Ladies, if you don't have one of these buttons, you ain't got nothing. This pen has 5 numbers on the back. The first 2 are 58,000. That was my grandmother Clayton's DAR pin, 58,000. Okay, moving right along. 2, rural and remote. This was a symposium that was held at the Brown Grand Theater about a couple of weeks ago. It's in connection with the Northwest Kansas Economic Development Commission. That's being funded a lot by Dane Hansen in Norton, Kansas. The person that presented this rural and remote was certainly different from what NPR, National Public Radio, had stated. National Public Radio stated that this is known as telecommuting in the rural areas that need development and help with economic development. This person, first of all, stated that he needed to already change his website. Even before he gets off of the ground, he needs to change his website. Second of all, which was actually a very big surprise to me, persons my age and older do not have the brain power, nor the experience, nor the willpower to understand computers. Okay. We'll leave that there, where it is, because I don't think it's ever going to get off the ground the way he wants it to. Second of all, our good representative, the doctor, was here at the Chamber of Commerce a couple weeks ago or last week. He was talking about Big Pharma. He was telling about how Big Pharma is ripping off those persons who are living out here, getting their medication from the local pharmacy, and how much it costs, etc. He didn't say anything about the perks that doctors receive when they go to conventions, about the hospitality rooms, or the tickets, the air flight tickets to a week's vacation at Malibu. Didn't say anything about those, but it's the guy in the middle.
Thank you, Arlene.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we didn't get to Merck Laboratories and the Keytruda cancer medicine, which was one of my teachers.
Okay. Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, yeah, Carol?
Carol Foster with Transportation, and a few months ago, I came to you asking for help for the $20,000 that we were trying to cover for senior center. We did it.
Good job.
With your guys'
Great.
help.
Good.
So I just
Very
wanted
good.
to say thank you.
Okay, appreciate it.
With your help too, Amy. So,
Thank you for all your work.
Thanks. Is there any other public comments? Okay. Rehabilitation of the tennis courts at City Park.
Hey, good evening, Commissioners. Thanks very much for your time tonight. My name is Ben Redder, and I'm presenting an idea and really a collaboration to you on behalf of a group that we put together with a common goal, recognizing that our resources are limited, but our goals are really very similar. Specific to the property that you have at City Park, one of the things that my wife and I and many friends have noticed over the past years, and obviously having grown up here myself, is that we have a tremendous resource there, and again, with finite resources, sometimes it's hard to keep those facilities at the cutting edge. And so the recognition that we had was, there's an opportunity to create a space that appeals to a lot of the goals that we've all identified, whether it be direct program with the city and identifying opportunities to engage multi-generational athletes or just folks who want to spend time in a wonderful space, or whether it was other members in the community that had similar interests. We also recognize an opportunity to diversify the offerings that the courts provided and that kind of thing. And so, as opposed to just starting with a concept and coming to you months ago, we instead engaged those collaborative partners that we've now developed and said, hey, what do you think? What are your ideas? Partners we engaged include obviously Cloud Core, because we looked at this as an opportunity in the community that would enhance economic development, would invite families to our region. We obviously looked at the city as you own the property, and you obviously from time to time have expense associated with maintaining the facility. And as we kind of circled the wagons, we started to talk to folks within the school district. And their recognition of the fact that they utilize that facility for recesses, for their sports programs, and it is really a gateway to their complexes, not only at the high school, but obviously the beautiful new track facility that we're fortunate to have. And so as we evaluated all those ideas and options, the first thought process was, how could we cost effectively enhance this space? And so what we did is pursued on our own some independent bids from companies like those that work on the track facility, Hellas being one example, and other local contractors for budgetary costs associated with the repair of the cement surfaces and resurfacing. And what we determined through the evaluation of those bids is that it was going to be a $3,000 to $4,000 cost per court, and that was going to be an expense that if you stayed on top of, you'd incur every 3 to 5 years. And so evaluating that didn't seem like a great fit, especially considering that we have a lot of needs in our community and again, finite resources. So we started evaluating alternative surfaces that allowed us to have great sporting events while at the same time minimizing our exposure as it relates to cost and repair on the surfaces that we have. What we found is, as we dug into the polypropylene surfaces and some of the newer surfaces available to the marketplace, there was a lot less preparation required. For example, instead of just repairing cracks or tearing out spaces of concrete, you could literally surface coat them and put this material on top. But the benefits that started to pour in after that were really more interesting as it relates to the goals we've identified to meet the multi-generational needs of our community. One was less wear and tear on legs, knees, etc. And in an example where you have someone wanting to play pickleball who's enjoyed it indoors and who would like to enjoy it outdoors, perhaps we can provide a space like that. For children playing basketball, I think if any of us drive by that facility on a daily basis and on a nightly basis, it's always busy. And that's great. I mean, that's really where we want our kids to be out participating. Growing up here, I remember enjoying 3-on-3 tournaments on that court during Fall Fest and at other times of the year. I remember summer recreational tennis. I remember tournaments that we would play that weren't associated with recreation, that drove revenue for our community and brought people to our community to spend their time, their money, and to enjoy an event in our community. And so as we wrapped all those things around and started looking at this polypropylene surface, we started looking into the warranties and the benefits to perhaps the city. What we found is 15 to 18-year warranties, no repainting, an enhanced surface that met all the requirements of the USTA, that met all the requirements of the NCAA, and that allowed us to potentially enhance the space in a way that reduced the cost impact on the city over an extended period of time. So all those things started to kind of fire for our group. And so we started to pull the budget proposals together for that enhanced surface. What we became immediately aware of is, obviously, enhanced surfaces come at a cost. So we began the process of budgeting and saying, hey, instead of just looking at our original concept, which is let's do this in a little bit here, a little bit there, what if we did the basketball court, the lower tennis court, and all 3 top courts with a high-end sport court polypropylene surface? And what if we chose to enhance a space that looks like this right now? And if we could advance to the next slide, some of these are examples of current concrete courts in need of repair, and then upgraded them to a space that looked like that we wouldn't have to address immediately or in the short term with maintenance costs. So obviously, alongside of that comes the idea of how do we make sure it stays great? So as we built the project footprint and started the budgetary cost analysis, we wanted to create an environment where we could have some speakers available for events, where we could have a small slab on grade near the facility where we could put a small building, inside of which we could house equipment for coaches and for tournament coordinators, and a small office. That would allow for the school district to benefit, their coaches to benefit from that enhanced environment, and for us to potentially attract new events to our region. Not only Acacia events, but obviously events that are private events and the events that we used to enjoy in this community. So in addition to some fencing repair that we identified, in addition to the upgraded surface, the surface preparation and the updated polypropylene surfaces, we endeavored to add nice, newer goals that would lock out at 10 foot, but that would be adjustable by city control. We looked at some enhancements to lighting, and when we put the entire budgetary cost together, we basically arrived at a total project cost around $250,000. Now, we knew that that wasn't affordable. Again, we identified the limited resources. So we've put together a series of grant proposals, and we've engaged the city in early discussion, and engaging you here today for your consideration for a small portion of this project in your budgeting process. And I want to identify that ask, and then I also want to tell you kind of what we're doing. We're looking to grant funding for $200,000 of the project cost. When we initially put this project together with our small group, we made a handful of contacts to donors who grew up here and were passionate about that facility, and in 6 phone calls we had $10,000 that's already been pledged to the project. We plan to continue the effort to grow those donations, and obviously want to contribute as much as we can so that we can defer some of the costs that would be incurred by the other partners in the project. But we plan currently to work with Dane Hansen for the vast majority of the grant funding. We've also been supported, and we'll have a letter that's part of our project next week from the Community Foundation of Cloud County. Excited about the project, ready and willing to support. We also have received the support from the school district, and I might identify again where the wind comes there. It's not just for their facilities or for their sports and athletics programs and for their recesses. It's also obviously the benefit of attracting community or families to our community. That obviously enhances the experience at our school district, and it's so near to our facilities that it really kind of wraps everything into a package. We looked at doing some branding on the courts that might involve the school a little bit to give ourselves a little bit more of a community feel, and we've got some donated limestone signage that's going to be similar to the signs that are in the park now, like the Jack Mitchell courts as an example. Additional supporters above and beyond the school district and the Community Foundation and Cloud Corps, who's been a great partner in this and who's helped us to establish an initial fund for the donations within the Community Foundation so that donors have a tax-deductible opportunity to contribute to the project. We also have K-State Research and Extension and a nice letter from the River Valley Extension District Extension Director, John Forshee, who identifies all the initiatives within their program that really are very much in line with providing awesome resources in our community to people who are either of multi-generational or low income, as an example, to have a resource that's always there for them and available. So to summarize, because again, I know your time's valuable and we're right here before the 4th of July, what we're here to kind of frame up and ask for your consideration in budgeting is that we're looking for a contribution from the partners on the project. And the partners that we've identified would be our small group of donors, Cloud Core, the city, and the USD. The portion of the project that we're looking for with a collaboration of the school district and the city is $40,000. And there's an opportunity to evaluate that investment over a period of time. But our goal would be, with your permission to proceed, to look at either this fall or early next spring as an opportunity to bring this project to life. I think it's also important to note that while we've, several of us have experience with involved contractors on projects like this, it would be very critical that the city staff is involved in the evaluation of all the bids that we'd ultimately be reviewing and selecting, and also the evaluation of all the products and services we've identified, so that you can speak intelligently about the product in the way that we've spent time investigating it as well. I also think it would be a great opportunity to engage and have Chris be part of our team, because obviously he has some goals in line with engaging the community and all generations in the community. And so I guess the summary is the resurfacing of the courts, that's the ask. We'll be looking at doing all the courts, but we'll do tennis on the 3 up top. The bottom tennis court would be both tennis and pickleball, be lined for both sports, and would have the necessary accessories available for that game. I think you'll find that there are a lot of people in our community in multiple generations playing that game, and it's certainly a trend in the larger cities as well. And then obviously the basketball court enhancement, lighting, speakers, signage. And if you have any further questions as we develop the project, we're more than happy to answer them. So we'll continue to work in the background, and thanks very much for your time. Are there any questions I can answer right now?
Well, I want to thank you, Ben, for all of the work that you've done on this. Obviously, you put in a lot of time on this, and I appreciate that. It's an interesting project, and it's you've gone a long ways down the road in doing the research and everything. So I think it's a project that we definitely want to consider. And so who all else is involved with your group that you're working with?
So currently the group includes my wife and myself, and our quiet contributors have been the folks who are from this region who are already pledging donations to the project. Cloud Core has been involved in the discussions, and we're just now engaging the city, and then the USDs have been involved. So our project group ideally would include those people, and I would love if you're open to it as an organization to involve Chris in that as well, because I think his contributions would be very meaningful to developing the project.
Okay. Okay.
Question I have about this, I would imagine that there's some degree of economy of scale and setup if we're going to be doing these tennis courts, knowing that the school uses tennis courts in other parks. Is there any opportunity to involve that, the additional courts, to have uniformity in our program?
I think it's a great idea, and I'd love to see this be a multi-phase project. And I was trying, in the early stages, to make our ask reasonable and to make the scope of the project manageable. But I think the experience we'll have, especially in our first park, if we're fortunate enough to pull this all together, would certainly be a springboard. And I'd love to be involved and see it through to the other locations as well.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Uh-huh.
Ben.
Broadway Plaza concert during Fall Fest. Hello.
I'm just here to give everybody information about our event that the Broadway Plaza will be hosting on Fall Fest, September 28th, 2019. This event, we actually got a handful of sponsors to bring back King Midas and the Mufflers. It's going to be an all-class reunion type of an event in conjunction with the Concordia, Kansas Alumni and Friends organization. This event is free of charge. It is going to be BYOB. We will close the plaza from 4 to 7 that day. At 7, the gates will open. BYOB will begin. We have 7 to 8 individuals that will be checking IDs, providing wristbands, checking coolers for no glass, and we will also have Officer Richard Vickers. He will be on site in uniform, providing an increase in police presence. We will have a nonprofit organization utilizing the concessions as a fundraiser. They'll be selling snacks, pop, water. The band plays from 8 to 11, and BYOB will stop at 11:30. I am requesting that we block off half of Broadway Street from 6 to the alley, and that is because we already have 8 class reunions that have confirmed they will be attending the event. Any questions?
Yeah. You know, maybe I'm confused, but the plaza was put up to bring business into town. This is the biggest business or event that the city has. And yet, was any consideration given or asked, have you sat down with the local establishments?
Yes.
And they were okay with this?
2 comments. All of the concerts that the Broadway Plaza has hosted have been BYOB. So out of 10, 9 of them have been BYOB. And then I have spoke with Tabby at Heavy's, and she does not want a drinking district this year. She said last year it killed her business because we had to block off the entire street. So she wants nothing to do with it.
Okay, how about
Hev-
Easy G's?
Easy G's, yes, they were the only ones that benefited from it. Gambino's, they are not allowed to participate in a drinking district because they do not have a liquor license.
Why would we open something up that with all the people? I mean, there's no way you can control it. There's no way that you can really stop minors from being in there. And
Well, we will, because we will be having IDs and everybody's gonna be checking the
so
names.
then when we broaden the street, you're gonna have the whole street, how people could bring them into the street area instead of the Brown Grand, how you control that?
Well, we will have an officer
One
on staff as
officer,
well.
with the crowds, I've seen the crowds. One officer isn't gonna be able to handle that. I mean, it just bothers me that the plaza was there to bring in business. Business to the people that's invested in this town. And then all of a sudden, the biggest event there is, and we're saying to people with all these classes coming in, bring your own booze.
It will
You know
help.
what? You don't have to go into these bars and help them out. Just bring yours, bring it. I mean, it makes no sense to me.
The liquor stores will benefit, the gas stations will benefit. Heavy's, they won't benefit. They said they lost almost $5,000 in sales last year
Well,
because of the drinking
They
district.
got their own problems. But I'm talking about businesses that are really, I mean,
It's kind of a
depend on
contradicting
that.
statement, Sam.
I'm sorry for that statement. But the fact is, it just makes no sense to me that the biggest event, and we leave people, just,
Only one business would be able to benefit, and that would be Easy G's.
well, that's not the only place people would go
As
in and
far
buy
as the
liquor
drinking
at.
district downtown, that would be the only establishment that would see an increase in revenue and liquor sales.
So as I've heard from a lot of different sides on this, I guess the question that I would have is if we are going to introduce the idea of expanding the drinking district beyond the plaza, why not extend it to the north and as well to really provide an opportunity for people to bring their own if that's what they choose to do, or also just show up and say, hey, I'd like to be able to go over here and bring something over here. To me, that seems like it would be a pretty decent compromise that would allow really the concerned people to be served and those people that want to bring in their own to be served. I'm not sure.
For sure. And we didn't decide on 6th Street because we have to block the entire street. And Gambino's wasn't really fond of blocking off their parking. The drinking district is still a possibility. Whoever wants to apply can still apply. They just, have to request it from the city and the state.
Why couldn't we just, instead of people bringing it in free, let vendors come in and set up in the plaza and then sell it? And I like that because then the vendor selling it has a responsibility for control as far as checking IDs
And
and
that's
doing
yeah.
the deal, instead of saying just anyone can bring it in.
That's
I mean,
definitely a possibility for 2020.
Well,
Was that considered for 2019?
Yes.
I'm a committee member,
I would like to comment also.
Okay.
I'm a committee member, and last year,
There were some aspects of the district that didn't go off as well as I think people had hoped. There were a couple fights. It wasn't, the district was really, really big, and so I think that led to part of it. So this year, we decided, and we had some business members pipe up and say that they weren't fond of the district. And of course, EZG's was, and I agree that I understand why that they would be a fan, because I think they benefited the most from it, which is great. But we wanted to give both the liquor stores an opportunity to participate, which would do the BYOB. I think we oftentimes forget about those businesses. You think of only the ones downtown, but those ones are ones that would truly, truly benefit from this. And then it's also, you know, people can still go into those establishments. We also are closing this at 11 o'clock at night, so that forces people to get off the street and into those businesses.
Okay.
Ty, you got a comment?
I would love to comment.
You have that right too.
You want to?
Yeah, let's just make comments. We're not gonna have a debate, but let's just make comments and,
Can I say?
go ahead, you can sit if you want to.
Well, first of all, obviously, they haven't done their due diligence because Gambino's is for the drinking district. You know, Rick Simpson also benefited last year. He ran, he sold beer out of the plaza and also signed off on taking responsibility from the plaza. And also, with Heavies, you know, I don't know if we can just go off comments. I would like to see some proof of, you know, someone losing business over it. You know, and obviously, you know, we benefited greatly from it, so, you know, we can offset that also. I've also spoken with the two liquor store owners who don't see this as a benefit. You know, if we want to benefit the liquor stores, you know, we can buy beer from the liquor stores. We do not have to go get it from Budweiser or Coors Light. You know, when I go to Clyde Watermelon Festival, when I go to Cortland Fun Day, I don't buy my beer in Cortland. I don't buy my beer in Clyde. I fill my cooler here and I bring it there. So, you know, there's a lot more factors here at stake. You know, we can block off half the street so Heavies has half their parking over there, and that would be great. Heavies hasn't been open for the last 3 days. There's no even guarantee that they'll be open on Fall Fest. So, you know, I think there's a lot more factors here than they're taking into consideration, and they obviously have not worked together with people to collaborate this event. This was all decided without collaborating with all the proper entities that were involved last year. Yes, Kim was upset last year. I've since spoken with Kim. Kim wants the drinking district. So, you know, we don't, here in Concordia, we don't have a lot of extra money. You know, this is our one time to make as most money as we can. We're gonna have the biggest event we've ever had in our history of Fall Fest, in my opinion. And we should be taking advantage of making some money. You know, I just don't understand why you wouldn't take this chance to do what's best for the community, and what's best for the community is for people to make money. Thank you.
Thanks.
I have a couple more comments. I did speak with Lisa Maston with Liquor Outlet this week. She says she loves the idea of the event being BYOB and prefers it over the drinking district. And she mentioned that Fall Fest already benefits the entire town. And again, Ty or whomever else can still apply for a drinking district. And we could still have BYOB in the plaza. We're not saying no to a drinking district.
So if Ty wanted to do a drinking district, he could
He
apply
could apply
for
to the
it.
city and the state, yes.
Okay.
That would be very tough to do two different things.
Well, when we kind of had this idea, I didn't do it to make Ty upset. I mean, I consider Ty a good friend, and I think that's a staple of our community. So when I thought of this this all-class reunion, it was actually during a tour, and 95% of the people that were on my tour said, Brant, we are sick and tired of organizing reunions. Can you do something to make it an all-class reunion? So I talked to Jessica and the Broadway Plaza committee, and we thought about the Broadway Plaza would be a great venue for it. So everything I've heard from our alumni, which is a big, big number, is greatly excited for this event. I will say, I think you'll do pretty good. We'll close down at 11. They have to get out of there by 11:30, and they're going to need somewhere to go. Also, you're not going to have a reunion spread out throughout the whole town. Like, you know, maybe there's people bringing their own booze at the fairgrounds. So that crowd is now going to be downtown. That's money that you never saw downtown that you will now, or at other venues throughout Concordia. So instead of one class reunion or two class reunion in Easy G's, there's a possibility of spillover of a lot more. So everything's going to be centrally located. But my concern as a representative for the alumni and the alumni and friends is safety. I went to the event last year with the DJ, and my concern would be another duplication of an ambulance showing up or cops after a big fight. And that's not something that I want our alumni that come back to Concordia every 5 years to think of as a big brawl place and a underage drinking. And that's why we want our space to be limited and small, not a big area. Now, could that still happen? Sure. But if you close it at 11 and have people stop drinking at 11, that reduces your chances of something like that happening. And that's why I want it to end at 11, and I want a small contained space. Nothing against Ty or Easy G's, just I want the best experience for the alumni.
I absolutely appreciate those points. The difficulty that I have is that I don't really see fault on either side of the argument. I think that one, I wasn't down there last year by the time the real fund started. I was pretty aware that there was potential for things to go south once certain people showed up, but I'm thinking also if I'm aware of that, then I believe that our officers are trained to see certain behaviors that are going to be able to be addressed, and I'm glad that Officer Vickers is going to be there. I really am struggling to see why we don't have to have the entire district the same size as it was last year, because that was fairly unmanageable. But I'm not sure why the district couldn't be slightly larger than what is being recommended, still allowing for the BYOB, still allowing for businesses that are wanting to take advantage of it to take advantage of it. It seems like that there's a pretty manageable way for there to be win-win on this deal by just changing a little bit the way we're making this dotted line without there being two duplicated processes happening in parallel. And so I'm not sure, and maybe there's things that we're not saying, and there may be other reasons why we're not wanting to do that, but to me it seems like you could still limit. If we're going to block off a street, then we have the potential to block off a street. If we're only going to block off half a street, then what about blocking off half of Broadway? You know, what keeps us from being able to do that to where we could have it just to half of the block?
The best place to see the concert is right in back of the plaza. So, and there's already picnic tables there, so it makes sense just to have it right in back. My concern again is, you know, we'll try to monitor that plaza area and that area, but are the businesses that are going to be making money on it supply some support out there too in that area, or is it just, am I going to have to go walk over there too and have to police that area, or are we going to have?
I think that if Ty or anybody's establishment does something that violates liquor laws, there's a fairly significant consequence that will be tied to that, and I think that those businesses do a pretty good job of limiting their liability in that. I agree that the best place to see the concert is behind it. I also know from a number of, I guess not a number of reunions I've been to, but a number of people I've talked to have been to reunions, Some of the folks absolutely enjoy the entertainment, and some of the folks say, get me away from here, I just want to talk to you. And so being able to be still present with the group, but aside from it, I think is actually a benefit to it, because then they can be out of earshot, they can still be with or close to other people, but they can get away from that direct sound and sight to be able to have a conversation within that class reunion.
What's the closing time on that?
I say shut it down all at the same time. Fine, shut the, because you're gonna bring up the ropes on the street, on 6th Street at, what, 11:30? Pull it all up. Shut it all down at the same time. I think that there's no reason to have a different timeline with anything.
The only thing I would say to that, you make really good points, is as you've been involved with Fall Fest, or at least your wife has, what we are dealing with is a limited amount of volunteers. So originally, the idea sprouted from, we have a limited amount of people that can help with this, and last year there was a scant amount of people involved, and you had such a large district, you could not in any good way or form police that very well with the people you did have. And so we were just trying to make this avoiding any potential mishaps. I mean, we're gonna keep it within the Broadway Plaza and those gates, because then it would be super easy just to have one gate open. The problem is that with Brant's work, we grew. So we have those 8 reunions. If you think bare minimum 50 people per class reunion, that's already gonna get you pretty full, plus everyone in the community that's just gonna wanna come and hang out. We wanted just to extend it, and that just happened here fairly recently. So it's more of a matter of volunteers. What we are not seeing from businesses who wanna do this is volunteering staff, volunteering people to barricade, volunteering the liability for the situation. I think that is the crux of why maybe that district isn't being applied for, because when you apply for it, you assume all of the liability for the area. And I understand that's a big thing to take on. We're willing to take it on for that small district. If somebody wants to take on that liability for the rest of it, I don't think that, I mean, we certainly wouldn't have a problem with it. It would be up to them and their liability.
See, that's the control of the liability. I think you make a good point. And that's what bothers me the most, is that what the committee has done and the size you're gonna do this when the alumni is fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, the city needs it. But that's what I'm saying, why not, if we, instead of everyone can bring their own booze, if you had vendors set up within the districts, then the vendors, when they sell the booze, they have to check the IDs and the whole thing. So there is some control on that, because they're selling the liquor. They're also getting the income. And so the city benefits from that as well.
Sure.
Because our businesses are successful. But then they would also then have to control, because you're right, when it comes down to it, is outside of checking going into the plaza, that street area, there will be no point in checking on that. And so we could have minors bringing booze in, we could have disruptions going out there, and there's no control out there.
Sure.
And yes, we have the police department, but I mean, with
Yeah.
that size, they can't control that.
You're absolutely right.
So it really comes down to it is, if you do it the way you got it set up with just BYOU, the only restricted area should be the plaza, because there is no way of controlling the streets that you got set up here.
We've done it before in the past that way, with, in just that street behind, and haven't had near the issues, just because it is smaller and you can see it all in one swoop, you know? You're not going down 6th Street where you're blocked by some buildings and down the other street. Again, and I agree with you, next year, I would love to look at that. We thought we would try it this way this year, because with the amount of volunteers we have, we are a little bit limited in our scope.
I have to ask one question, Jeff, and I'm done.
Yeah.
Given the amount that you're growing this event, I mean, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you want the vendors or the businesses that we have collect all the money? What was your thinking on saying, okay, let's let other people just bring in what they want?
I think we missed the point again. The alcohol's got to come from somewhere. If you're flying in from Dallas to Concordia, you're not going to buy your alcohol in Dallas and bring it here. I mean, and a lot of these people are flying in. The alcohol is being purchased. In Cloud County, a lot of it is. It's being purchased in your liquor stores.
But they're not the only people flying in. I mean,
No,
that's,
sure,
the
sure.
majority of the people are
But
gonna
they're
be
ge-
around
But
here.
the people from around here, they're getting it from around here too.
So you're gonna have people from Belleville.
Sure.
They'll bring their own booze.
Right.
You'll have people from Clyde bringing it in and all over. And to see, that's money that they would have to spend in this town.
And I understand your point, and I agree. I think we should look at getting additional vendors for next year. But for this year and the time constraints and the people who wanted to volunteer and contribute and be part of these committees, this is what we could manage at this point. But we would love to have more volunteers and more people to help with that input next
Actually,
year.
what kind of volunteer stock do you think would be required to additionally set up, maintain, and police a slightly expanded drinking district?
My personal opinion is every business, that's my personal opinion now that I can have one. It would be that every business that signs up to have liquor go out the door provide 4 to 6 staff members to help
If that were feasible,
outside of their business.
sure.
Right, not selling booze, but helping with just
Yeah.
managing.
Like being a
Yes.
bouncer, yeah.
Set up, managing, and tear down, sure.
Yeah.
So if 6 is a safe number, and there were businesses that were willing to provide that, would there be obligation, or, what would the barriers be to partnering moving forward still within this year?
Bring it on, I would say. If we
Okay.
got some additional help and they were willing, someone does have to take the liability. So I know that was something that was discouraging folks in the past from signing up. You still have that, and I don't believe the city wants it.
No, but I'm
Okay.
thinking that if a certain business wants to be able to expand it I think if the volunteer thing is the issue, and if the policing and the management is the issue, and we have somebody that's willing to commit the staff, the volunteers, the number for that, is there a reason that it couldn't be done this year?
As far as the drinking district and BYOB,
Yeah.
that's like, we can still do BYOB inside the plaza, and whoever wants to apply for a drinking district,
Not apply separately, apply at the same time.
well, we don't have to apply for a BYOB in our management agreement.
But you're asking
I'm
to
asking just to,
expand it.
yeah, expand it to the street. So if somebody was wanting to do a drinking district, we would give them that street to
Can
do
we
the
not
drinking district.
What's preventing us from being able to expand it a different direction if you're able to get the volunteer stock that you're asking for?
Nothing.
So we
Like,
can do that?
Yeah,
So if you're guaranteed the volunteer stock this year to be able to expand it not only to the east, but also to the north, that is something that is feasible.
But you have to have a business sponsor. You have to have a
the
vendor
Broadway
sponsor.
Plaza is not gonna expand. We're not gonna do the drinking district. We're,
You're asking us to expand the plaza.
the BYOB,
If
for,
you
pa-
were-
for half of
you
the
have
street.
to be
They're
selling.
responsible
We're
for the
not selling.
they're responsible for BYOB within the fence. Directly
And
behind
then,
the
yeah,
plaza.
and then right in front of the plaza is what we want.
So how do they exist at the same time?
Well, if somebody was to apply for a drinking district and they wanted to include all of Broadway or part of Broadway, we would not need BYOB in the street. For us, as BYOB, it doesn't matter where the beer comes from.
I guess my question is, can a BYOB and a district coexist at the same time?
Technically, yeah, because last year.
Yes, they
we
just
didn't
can't have our,
advertise it.
yeah,
You could BYOB last year. We just didn't advertise it.
well, they wouldn't be able to apply for the plaza in the drinking district. They would not be able to have the plaza map on their drinking district. They can
So-
have the street, but not.
So that would get a little bit,
It's gonna get
Th-
confusing.
that'll get
guys.
confusing
There's
because
gonna
they're-
be liability issues, because you're gonna have a BYOB
Yeah.
person trying to walk into the drinking district, the drinking district's not.
They have to be labeled, their cans.
yeah,
And
but
so you're gonna
people are
have
gonna be
those.
doing BYOB all over the place downtown.
have to be labeled.
Or not, just cups.
Don't have to be labeled either. They didn't have to be last year.
Yeah.
And.
But if we had the split district.
One more time.
Okay.
I've never been approached about volunteers. I've never been approached. Fall Fest Committee, I'm a part of Fall Fest Committee. Fall Fest Committee has not been approached about volunteers. You know, I could also argue that you guys are taking on more liability with the BYOB than you would be with the drinking district, because we're taking all the liability, even though it's on your property. So obviously there's still some liabilities with city property also. But I would argue that you're taking on more liability with BYOB. And also, if it wasn't for me getting involved, they didn't even have a plan to check IDs. There was no plan. I and Amy got involved in that. There was not even a plan for that until I got involved. So no one, I have never once been approached about working together and coexisting. And that's one thing that really hurts me, that really upsets me, is that, that's a huge problem in this town. Everybody works on their own and does not work together. There's no reason why we can't all come together and figure this out. Thank you.
Commissioners, would it be appropriate to maybe table this, do a little bit more research, and lay out some clear-cut options? Because I know that there's it's very, very confusing with the state restrictions, what the city has to do, the ordinances, lay out some options, and bring this back for a study session at another time.
Yes.
I think so, because I've got a lot of comments and questions I want to make, but I don't want to make them here right now.
The other thing that we can do is we could comment on things that we can do for 2019 versus things that we would need to wait till 2020 to implement. We could also discuss the changes that would have to be made to be able to make that happen. We can also discuss how things could be melded to make and make sense within those statutes, within the ordinances and that sort of thing. That's something we really can't do here on the fly.
Right.
Does that make sense?
We need time to table it, take it to a study session.
Yes.
There's a lot of things going on.
Mhm.
We need to get it all figured out before we give any answers, so.
Okay.
I think there's great effort being made, and so I don't want any of the challenges or the questions to be taking away from the efforts of everyone, putting the all-class reunion together, the Fall Fest committee, the businesses that are investing in our community. I think that there's great effort being put across the board, and I think that's what makes this really a difficult conversation, is because I think that there is a way, I want to believe, I'm a delusional optimist, that there's a way that we can work together and make this beneficial for everyone in a way that makes sense for everyone. But so in doing so, I think it'd be good to not take any action, but rather to have a full discussion where we can be open and better educated, perhaps on our parts, to make the best decision we can for this process and this event.
So what we were just discussing was on your agenda. It was under presentations, and Jessica was
Right.
just sharing that the event was happening on Fall Fest, being sponsored by Broadway Plaza. The next item on the agenda is an action item, and it kind of relates to Broadway Plaza. It relates to the management agreement and an amendment that we need to do there related to how revenue is receipted and the dates of their presentation. I know, Amber, do you want to speak to that at all? Okay. We don't need to take any action on Jessica's presentation tonight, but we are asking for your action on this addendum to the management agreement and those particular components. So let Amber come up and speak to that a little bit.
Does any amendment to the agreement have anything to do with the Fall Fest event?
No.
Okay, thanks.
As was stated at the end of this memo, we actually presented this to you in November of 2017 in a study session, and then we kind of forgot to ever bring it back to approval somehow. So that's what we're doing. We've actually been working under the assumption that it was passed ever since then. So this is how we're doing it now, and so we would just like you to formally approve. Basically, in the past, or prior to this, we were allowing Jessica to book events and stuff like that based on a percentage of revenue that she had received and had available, and we were having to keep track of that over years and accumulate it, and it just made more sense to just come up with a budgeted amount, and every year that's all you could spend, and there wasn't anything that we had to worry about carrying from year to year. And she was on board with that too, and so that's what we've been doing. And the other thing was that she would provide a report on the calendar year, and can't remember what month we said, in February. And she has been doing that, so.
So this is just basically saying we're actually going to make our documents reflect our behavior?
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess we didn't realize that we never formally passed it, so.
Okay.
I think you're pretty good to do that.
I have a couple of questions, and Jessica, this isn't pick on Jessica night, I want you to know, okay? But in addition to grants and funding and advertising, I look at it, I'm an insider but an outsider, and I look at it and say, BYOB, free this, free that, no charge for this, no charge for that. But yet I know that the plaza's not fully supporting itself. So, and I've been asked by several people on the street and about that, and I have the same concern myself. But what is the plan, or what is the reality of the plaza being able to support itself?
Can I offer a feedback real quick before? The plaza was never designed to support itself. The plaza was designed as a dinner bell that would bring people downtown and would draw business downtown. There's not a way for it to be solely, independently self-sustaining. It was a community effort put forth to draw the community together. And I think that's why it's better to have the community there than to charge $5 at the door and have 20 people there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you maybe make $100 more than you would have made, but you don't have 200 people showing up for a movie. You don't have 300 people showing up for a concert. So that's my answer when those folks ask me about that. I certainly don't want to take that away from Jessica, but I think as someone that was fortunate to be on the commission when we were moving forward with that, that was my understanding, is that there's not a way for it to be solely, and it's not going to be a business that generates income. The main benefit that it has is bringing people together, a sense of community, and hopefully drawing some business downtown.
Yeah, draw business downtown. And that's my main question is, if we have, people can bring in their own booze, why not set up vendors and go to Easy G's or Heavy's or whoever and say, okay, you can set up a vendor tonight and then make some money on it. I mean, that's one of the reasons why the plaza was there, to generate money, besides getting together, which was part of it, but to generate money for the businesses downtown.
Well,
Okay.
And to date, I believe that it has been doing that, so, I mean,
I would-
aside from the current conversation.
to
but-
piggyback on what Chuck said, because I was part of the commission at that time as well, the purpose of this park, which is what it is, was to bring people together, in my opinion. So we're talking about quality of life, not just to attract people to business. So it was to enhance the quality of life in our community. And I believe that it's done that. But anyway, somebody asked a question of Jessica.
I was gonna say the same thing, Chuck. The plaza is a, glorified park, and it was never intended to act like a business, and
That's why we don't charge anybody to use the splash pad, for example.
Right.
And it costs us money to waste the water. That was a decision we
We want to minimize the bleeding as
made.
much as possible, but it's.
Right.
Well, I guess my point is that I would think that, yes, it is a park, but I would think that we'd be doing anything and everything we could to utilize that park or that resource to bring more money in to the city. It's just like having baseball tournaments and charging and those types of things. But if BYOB is increasing the liability for the city, then I have a problem with it. And I don't think it should happen.
Again, I'm not, I don't
That
have,
was set for the study session. What we're talking about is
Okay.
the changing of the agreement that SC wrote
Right.
with BYOB.
right, but I was just gonna point out that, I don't have a side either way here, but, she did say that 9 of our last 10 events are BYOB, so we would have to completely,
Yeah,
If
that
you're
needs to
worried
be,
about-
we need to retalk that.
anyway, the agreement, so.
I move to approve the amendment to the Broadway Plaza Management Agreement with Cloud Corp.
Second?
I have a motion from Keaton and a second from Christie. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the special meeting of June 14th, June 19th and June 26th.
So moved.
Have a motion from Sam. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Keaton. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Appropriation Ordinance 12. Do I have a motion for that?
I move to approve appropriation ordinance number 12.
I have a motion from Keaton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Sam. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Airport Advisory Board appointments. Susan Redder and Scott Henderson are applying to re-up their participation in the Airport Advisory Board. Do I have a motion to?
I move to appoint Susan Rutter and Scott Henderson to the Airport Advisory Board.
I have a motion from Chuck. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Keaton. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Managers report.
Mayor and Commissioners, I'm pleased to report that as of 3 o'clock Friday afternoon, our application was submitted for the countywide housing rehab grant program to the Federal Home Loan Bank. So we'll find out in November whether or not we get those funds. Good collaborative effort between Cloud Corp, City of Miltonville, and Tammy Mars with Merit out of Miltonville too. So we really appreciate that opportunity. We'll also be presenting to the Kayak Committee on Tuesday in Topeka for the pre-application presentation to precede the official.
Can you say that again?
That's faster.
That's going to be in the bloopers.
Community Development Block Grant application. So, and that application is for $400,000 in funding to stretch our dollars further to rehabilitate, reconstruct the two downtown alleys, 2 blocks of downtown alleys, including the underground storm sewer system and including the underground sanitary sewer system in those areas. Finally, I think Mr. Rutter did a great job with his presentation to you tonight on the tennis courts. I just want to be really clear because the application for the Dane Hansen portion of the grant, which they're going to apply for $200,000 worth, is due at the end of this month. And so I just want to make sure I understand, do we have your consensus to go ahead and proceed with that application for funding? And then knowing that we will need to discuss within our study sessions if and by how much the city could actually contribute any of their funds toward the project. The reason I'm asking is because Cloud Corp is doing the application. Cloud Corp is not a nonprofit, so they can't apply directly to Dane Hansen, so they will need to use us as the nonprofit to be able to apply, and I don't want them to proceed with that without having your consensus to proceed with that application.
So given our okay to proceed, doesn't mean the city has to put any money in.
Right, that's a separate conversation to be had during our budget study sessions because we learned the numbers on Monday, and so we need to give Amber some time, and we need to have some time with some staff to talk through the project, to talk through what our recommendation to you would be.
One question then, if, say Hanson comes back and says, okay, on the 200,000, and all of a sudden the city can't come up with anything, or they don't come up with enough, then the money just goes back. There is no commitment either way.
If Dane Hansen awards the funds, we actually have to do the project to get those funds. So you have to expend money to be able to request
Right, but if we
payment.
didn't do the project, then there would be no commitment.
Correct,
Okay.
correct, yes.
I just want to make sure that we weren't tying in anything.
Right, by giving your consensus tonight to allow the city to be the sponsor for the grant application, you're not committing any city funds to the project tonight. That'll be a separate conversation that occurs during our budget study session when we have more information about the project, and then you can decide if and how much the city funds would be appropriate to contribute to the project.
I really like the idea of it. I certainly like the idea of it, the opportunity for grant funding, but I'd really want to know from Chris and from Ron kind of their perspectives on it, their numbers, and what it looks like from their perspective. So I think I don't see a reason not to proceed, knowing that we're not committed to it.
I say proceed.
I agree.
I agree with that.
Yeah, and we'll have more information that specifically Ron and Chris will be able to vet, and Amber will be able to vet before our budget study session to be able to talk more intelligently about what it all involves and what it all looks like and how we feel about it. So we're still waiting on information for the specifics of the type of material and how it goes on and how it goes together, but we will have that information.
Okay.
Good.
That's all I have for this evening. Do you have any questions of me? Thank you.
Staff reports. Chris?
just want to give you kind of a heads up. Probably the next meeting, I'll probably be bringing some numbers to you. As you know, we have 2 light poles that broke at the complex a few weeks back with the heavy storms that came through way of insurance, and we're in Prairie Land, who the poles are actually too big for Prairie Land to set, so we had to go somewhere else. Sunflower, we do have the poles coming, but we've had an issue with the lights. According to Hoods, who's been doing a lot of the legwork on tracking down the lights, in 2 years they're not going to be able to find them anymore. So we're talking the discussions now of transitioning to LEDs for the ones that have broken. And since it's a different light, we would have to balance it out, especially on the big field, since it's only on one side that's broke. So we're kind of coming up with a plan of reusing the good lights that we still do have for our softball field, since it's a lower pole, and then coming up with a way to transition at least part of it right now to LEDs. Being since 2 years we're going to be out of luck anyway with insurance, what's going to be covered part of that might be the time to do it. So I don't have any numbers yet. That's what's starting to come in on the LED part of it. So I'll be bringing that to you maybe next meeting or shortly.
Okay.
And I know Keaton had brought up about an inspection on those poles, because a lot of them are deteriorating pretty rapidly. They've been there for I don't know how many years, probably since they built the complex, I would assume. I was actually under the impression that a study had been done with the director before me, Chris Curtis, and nothing had come about it. Well, by way of research and stuff, he actually canceled the test. So I'm rebooting that process of getting the company out here to test all the poles and see where we're at with them, and actually have a system and a date and time, kind of what projected on each pole out there.
When the poles were damaged from the storms, what happened? Did they fall over, or did
The big one on the big field broke at the base, and you can see when it broke of how much it had rotted in, and how much was still good.
Where did it fall?
Towards the field.
Okay.
So it was actually in the ground, not that far. It took 5 of us to yank it out, just the metal part after they had cut it up, and about 8 different tries to yank it out. And then the way our netting system is set up out there, it was cabled to the one caddy corner. So then when that one fell, which is an 85-foot pole, it pulled on the other one and broke it halfway up. So one was kind of a chain effect from the other.
Yeah, well, I agree with Keaton and the inspection part of it, because it could really be a bad thing.
Yeah, huge liability if something goes wrong.
Now, I know since I've lived in Concordia, this is the second time when the big ones have broke because of a storm, straight line winds, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of unfortunate right now that they've happened when in the middle of the night and nobody's been around, because that's a lot of.
Is it an independent inspector, or is it a pole salesman that's going to inspect them?
Pole
I don't know how to answer that.
Look, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's actually the ones that do all the poles around
Yeah,
town.
they're contracted with Prairie Land and Sunflower, and so.
I just am thinking back when we were working on 18th, I got a call from a friend of mine who worked for an asphalt company that was really promoting the benefits of asphalt, and I know we all received a letter from the concrete guy talking about the benefits of concrete, so naturally they're a bit biased. I certainly want to do what's right and what's safe. Just want to make sure we're doing it the best way we can.
Yeah, and from what I've understood from these test results, I mean, they give you specific percentage of good wood and projection of life expectancy still.
Fair enough. Appreciate it. I think it's good to know. Thanks, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Wanted to give you an update on the project north. I talked to Greg Post from NOAC yesterday. He said he would not be able to get in to do this next section, maybe not next week, but probably the next after this next week. They're waiting on a well driller to put in the wells to dewater the sandy soil. So that's their only hang up on the whole project is waiting for a well driller. So in the meantime, we've been working on the previous block, trying to clean it up a little bit. And yesterday, they just put in the gas line to one of the houses so we could just get to the great big hole. We had put several loads of sand in it, but couldn't get past the gas line. So that's where we sit on that.
Okay.
And the water emergency, that was lifted this morning at what time? within 24 hours, we had recovered to normal operating pressures, so we just wanted to let it go another day to see where we had, where we could be. So in the summertime, we don't like to let it get down to 40 to 43 PSI. That would be kind of a scary situation with demand in the wells. In the wintertime, that's no big deal because there's just no demand during the winter.
Yeah.
So as of last night, we were almost full. So
Good.
we
But
went
people
ahead.
responded,
Yes.
basically.
People
Good.
responded well, and if you have just a couple hundred people do what we ask them,
Makes a big difference.
makes a huge difference. So actually last night at 4:30, we were able to turn one of the wells off, and two of the wells that remain pumping are keeping up with the demand.
Yeah.
So
Good.
we'll watch it tomorrow, and if people start to use a little bit more water, we'll be able to counteract that. So.
Like I said earlier, I think it's a good, in a way, this is kind of a learning experience, and I think people hopefully will realize how much water they use and how much they waste and how important it is. And I agree with Amy's release in that we need to, I think people need to practice that for the state of Kansas and all over. But it's good that we had that good of a response to enabled us to recover quickly.
Mhm. Yes. So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Great
Thanks,
job,
Jimmy.
thanks.
Been busy. Now I can take a shower.
I wondered what that was.
Any other staff reports? Okay. Mayor and Commissioners, Sam?
No, happy 4th of July, everybody.
Chuck?
Speaking of 4th of July, there's still time. The Hood Park neighbors are having their annual 4th of July event tomorrow. I should know better, but there'll be a race in the morning. Toby may know better. I just show up where my wife tells me to be. What's that? 8:30. There's the Firecracker 5K, which is a pretty traditional run. There's the Renegade 5K, which will take you through some of the hills around Hood Park. And then there'll be the race I'll be participating in, the Dud, which is a mile walk run, primarily for kids, but I'm doing it for the kids. After that, we're gonna have a bike parade for the kids. There'll be some inflatables set up. We'll have a little bit of a barbecue. I've really enjoyed the opportunity to get people together. I think when Amber told me last, we had 67 adult runners, and I think most of our kids' spots were taken up, so it's growing year after year. I think we usually get a fire truck down there. If the police want to send a car, which will usually, I don't like police cars around my house, but this will probably be a good time for them to be there. Hey, fantastic. But it's just a great opportunity to really celebrate what one of the reasons we moved here, just the community and a sense of getting together. So everyone's invited. It's usually fun just to show up, even if you're not going to do anything, just to see the kids honk horns and do all the fun stuff. It's amazing. That's the first thing they reach for in the fire truck. Let's see how many times we can pull this. BYOB. I'm still working on that. You're welcome to stay in my driveway, Mark, but
Okay.
on city property, it's not allowed at this point in time.
Come to my house, I'll charge you.
Is that it?
That's it, thanks.
Okay. Same, have a happy 4th of July. Fireworks, I take my dogs to Salina for a few days and let them stay in the soggy dog down there, but I always have a problem with, I think when we were kids, you could fire them on the 4th of July, and that was about it. I didn't know you could fire them for a week like you do now, but I guess I'm a proponent of one day only. Sorry, kids. Happy 4th of July.
I do too. I don't have anything. Have a good 4th.
I don't have anything.
Move to adjourn.
I have a motion from Chuck to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Keaton seconds. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.